All right, we're live. Well, welcome everyone who are joining our YouTube live session. We will get started in the next couple of moments here. We'll just give a little bit of time for people to come on in. So for those of you who are joining us, this is our school year abroad information session. This will mostly focus on our year-long and our semester program. I did see that some of you may be interested in the summer program, which is great, but this is our year-long and semester program. So for those of you who are more interested in the summer, please go to our website and you can sign up for a call with one of us. But we are going to be focusing our time on our academic programs for the year and semester. We're really excited to welcome all of you and get started. And we can go over a few guidelines. So for those of you who are viewing us on YouTube, you are welcome to use our question feature. We did also compile all of the questions that were submitted in advance. So we will be getting to those at the end of our session. Hopefully we'll answer a lot of them during, but we will leave some time for a Q&A. And we will try to keep this session to about 45 minutes to an hour. And so if any other questions come up, please feel free to reach out to me, Maggie Bland. My email is mbland@sya.org, and I can be your point person moving forward in the admissions process. A brief overview of our agenda for the evening. We will do our introductions of our wonderful SYA alumni from last year's class. I will do a brief admissions presentation, and then we will get into our Q&A and our panel with our alumni. So we'll have some shorter questions, some longer questions, and then we'll get to your questions. So that's kind of the brief overview of the evening. So we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Once again, my name is Maggie Bland. I work in admissions at School Year Abroad, or SYA as we call it. And I'm really excited to have all of you here. I know we have some parents, some students, and so we're just really grateful that you're carving out the time to be with us tonight and to learn more about this amazing program. So I will allow our alumni to do their intros. So we will go Alexandra, then Sophia, then Noelle. So Alexandra, why don't you take it away?
Hi, my name is Alexandra. Mi chiamo Alexandra. I spent fall semester in Italy last year, and I live in Massachusetts. And at the time of applying, I was going to Beaver Country Day. But currently, I switched to a different school to do the IB program.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexandra. All right, Sophia.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Sophia et je viens de Boston et j'ai fait une année étranger en Rennes, France. Hi everyone, I'm Sophia, I'm from Boston. I did SYA France last year and now I go to Concord Academy as a senior.
And Noelle.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Noelle et j'ai étudié à Rennes, France aussi. And so my name is Noelle. I also studied at SYA France. I currently go to the Berkeley Carroll School in Brooklyn and I live in New Jersey.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, alumni. I will ask you to exit the stage and I will do my admissions presentation for all of you. And then we will bring all of you back when it is time for our Q&A. So I am going to share my screen. Just a moment. All right. So again, welcome everyone to our info session on School Year Abroad, or SYA. We will be focusing on our year-long and semester programs tonight. So we will go ahead and get started. So picture yourself here, traveling throughout Europe with your new friends, learning the language through conversations with locals, and living with a host family. We have campuses in France, Italy, and Spain. So again, we offer the year-long and semester programs at all three of our campuses. And we really hope that you take this opportunity to immerse yourself in a new language, live with a host family, and really see that language come to life.
Every experience you have here will be an adventure. The risks, the rewards, they're all included.
This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it. That makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
You really feel the gravity of the things that you learn out of your textbook rather than just hearing about them and memorizing some flashcards. I think it's the difference between memorization and understanding.
It's not just schoolwork, it's actual practical experience that you can't really get anywhere else.
What SYA does best is make students comfortable being uncomfortable. You really start to embrace the idea of being uncomfortable.
I don't think any other program can really give you this experience. They're willing to throw their students into these situations, trust that we'll be okay. And in the end, we are okay. And I think that we take so much away from it just because SYA is willing to give us that trust and freedom.
So the capstone project is the culminating end of year project for all SYA students. That's very much grounded in the fact that we are in Spain, and the goal of the project is to take best advantage of the resources that are around us.
I think that I've been able to get through the surface level of my experience here, not only with the land, but with the people. And I think that the longer that you're here, the deeper beneath the surface you can really get.
My host family, they are the cutest people I have ever met. I can leave Italy saying, I'm part Italian now. I am part of their family and they love me and I love them. The relationships that I've created with them, that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I know it can be sort of scary thinking, 9 months in a foreign country. It flies by so fast and it's so fun. It's an experience that I feel so fortunate to have been involved in. It's not something that a lot of people get to do, so if you have the opportunity, please do it.
For anyone who's on the fence about going to SYA or even applying, the fact that you're even thinking about it probably means that you're somebody who should be here.
All right, so just to recap some of what you heard in that video, all of our students are paired with a local host family as they immerse themselves in the local culture and feel truly at home while living abroad. SYA students are part of a small student body composed of sophomores, juniors, and seniors from high schools all across the United States. So here you can see our 3 campus buildings. So SYA students go to school at their own SYA campus with each other, and each campus is about 50 to 60 students. So at SYA, we do have a 2-year language requirement for our Spain and France programs. That's 2 years of Spanish or French. And then for our Italy program, that's just 2 years of a different language, but it doesn't have to be Italian. And I do just want to note that for those of you who may feel intimidated by the language component, a wide variety of language learners excel at SYA due to our fully immersive nature of the program. So you do not need to be fluent. You do not need to feel super comfortable using the language before you apply. The goal is to really learn through the immersive experience. So as part of our experiential curriculum, you will get outside the classroom and explore the culture around you, whether that's interviewing locals for political science, making pasta for agroecology, or visiting museums for art history. You'll really be challenged to take your education into your own hands. So one of our recent alumni says, I thought I saw independence at boarding school and then I did SYA. So you'll really only grow more independent at SYA. And part of that is through our school organized trips. So students go in small groups throughout the host country. And as you can see here, these are some of the cities that our students visit in France and in Italy. And we really do try to get the students out and about to explore the whole entire country, and in Spain. So some of these cities you may know, some you may not, and that's really just to get our students using the language as much as possible. So as part of our curriculum, we also have a capstone project. So whether that's researching fashion and designing an outfit in Italy, investigating local farming practices in France, studying environmental sustainability in Spain, it's really just another way that our students take ownership of their learning and get to focus on a subject that's really important to them. With the assistance of our extracurricular coordinator, all of our students will engage in local athletic, artistic, and service-oriented opportunities. So this is a great way for students to make local connections, and each campus also has a exchange with a local high school to really facilitate that process in terms of making local friends while you're abroad. So our American faculty members teach classes such as math and English in English, and then our local teachers teach in the target language for the most part. So in Spain and France, they do start in the target language, and then in Italy, they kind of wade into Italian throughout the year. But that's really there to challenge the students to really immerse themselves in the language and get comfortable being uncomfortable. So colleges love SYA. This is one of the most frequent questions we get. So these are the most frequently attended colleges and universities by SYA graduates in the past 5 years. But the really important part about this is that students really find their voices overseas, and they demonstrate the grit and ambition it takes to live in a new country and learn a new language. Also, each of our campuses has a college liaison who will help juniors start the college process and seniors complete applications. We are also SAT testing sites. We also believe that financial need should not discourage any student from attending our program. That's why we have over $2 million in financial aid and over 10 scholarships. So for a small program, that does make a really big difference. SYA is a risk worth taking. We really want you to get outside your comfort zone and do something different in high school. And we really hope that you can do that and see the language come to life at one of our beautiful campuses in Rennes, France, Viterbo, Italy, and Zaragoza, Spain. So this is just a note to encourage all of you to, you don't need to scan the QR code because you've signed up for this, but to visit us online and follow us on social media. So we have campus reporters who are producing content for us each week on our Instagram and our TikTok. So please go ahead and give us a follow there. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will invite our alumni back to the stage. All right, welcome back. And we have Lucy, yay! Lucy, could you give a quick intro for those who are viewing us now?
Yeah, should I do it in Spanish and English?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Hola a todos, soy Lucy, soy de California, San Francisco, y perdóname porque estaba conduciendo desde mi cole aquí, pero estoy aquí ahora. And I'm Lucy. I go to Marin Academy in Marin, but San Francisco. I'm from San Francisco, California, and I did Spain, SYA Spain, our past year. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have all 3 countries represented, which is awesome. Thank you all in advance for joining us tonight. So we are going to jump right into our Q&A with our alumni, starting with Alexandra, talking about your favorite class.
So I liked a lot of my classes, but my favorite ones were definitely my 2 Italian classes. I had Italian language classes and also Italian experiential classes. When I loved those because a lot of the time in school you get the feeling of like, why am I learning this? I don't feel like I'm actually applying this. Like, this feels like useless knowledge. But it was really fun to like learn something and then be able to go home and practice it with your host family, or be able to come to class in experiential learning classes and talk about a phrase that you've been hearing really often, and like learning about the culture in like a classroom setting, and then getting to go outside and see it before your eyes as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So for all of you watching, all of our students take 6 courses. So 2 are in the target language, focusing on the target language. 1 is our experiential course, which is really based in culture and conversation. And the other is a little bit more grammar, linguistics based. The other 4 classes are math and English, taught in English, and then 2 electives, which we'll hear a little bit about later. Okay, moving on to our activities. Lucy, if you could talk about one of the activities you did while at SYA Spain.
Yeah, I have a fun story for this one. So my second semester in Spain, I was there for the full year. a friend and I decided to join the local rowing team, which I had never done before. But I think that SYA really helps you embrace the attitude of really just trying things and, being comfortable in the uncomfortable. So we had the bravery to do that, and I'm really glad that we did. I had never rowed before or done crew in the States, but it was definitely like an intramural team, not very competitive, but it was so fun. We were with kids kind of younger than us. Everything was taught in Spanish, and so we were learning how to row in Spanish. So now that I'm back in the States, I always tell people, well, I do know how to row, but only in Spanish. I don't think that if somebody were to coach me in English, I would be able to be pretty good. But it was a really wild experience with the team, but so much fun. We even participated in like regattas by the end of the year. And we got to row right on the Ebro, which is like the river that goes right through our city. So it was really beautiful. We would row at night. And I loved it. So yeah, that was a really awesome extracurricular activity I did with SYA.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, we hear that the extracurriculars are a really great gateway into making some local connections and some local friends. And I think bonding over learning a new sport is a great way to do that. So I'm so glad you had that experience. Noelle, I'll turn it over to you for an activity.
So I kind of did two because back at home, I'm like a pretty serious piano player. So I actually took piano lessons in France in French. So that was like really difficult at first because all the things I'm familiar with were now in like the target language. So now I know like some piano words in French and in English as well. So that was the first thing I did. And then at the second part of the year, because I also stayed for the full year, so the second semester, I started to volunteer at a local retirement home. And this was like so rewarding for me because I worked specifically with two of the ladies who lived at the retirement home, and I would see each of them twice, each one once a week for around like an hour and a half to 2 hours, essentially just like spending time with them, practicing the target language. And also I was able to like learn so much about the culture through them because for example, I even spent like Easter with one of them, and I had like lunch with her family. So that was just like so much fun, like meeting locals outside of my host family as well.
That's awesome. We get a lot of, I remember looking at our classes, our incoming classes this year, and the top number of the shared activity of all of our students is volunteer work. So I'm so glad that you got to do that while at SYA France. That sounds really rewarding. On to a top subject for many of our viewers and students, food. So Alexandra at SYA Italy will tell us about your favorite food.
Well, obviously it's Italy. Like all the food was amazing, which I was really nervous about it because I've always been a really picky eater all my life. So I was really scared to get into a new family that didn't know like my weird dietary quirks. And then, I mean, I was too shy to tell them about the stuff that I was too nervous to eat. So I ended up trying a lot of stuff that I would have never tried at home. And I really, really loved the food. And I ended up, by the end of the semester, I ended up finishing my plate before everyone and asking for seconds and thirds. I just loved the food there. It was great. I loved everything. I loved the pasta specifically, obviously.
Oh, I'm so jealous. And I think that's a great point that you said, I was a picky eater before, and we do hear that from students. It really helps kind of push their comfort zones, but we also do a survey basically for all of our students going into their host family placements. And there is a section for dietary restrictions. So for people at home who are wondering about that, there is a chance to express those if you would like to be put in a family that is kind of specifically aware of your dietary restrictions or preferences. So that is an option in the enrollment process. All right, Sophia, we're going to turn it over to you to talk about your favorite SYA trip.
So one of my favorite SYA trips was definitely our first trip to Marseille. So this is a trip we did in October, and it was the first trip we did as a big group. I say this was my favorite trip because it really introduced me to all of like my class, and I got to make so many new friends and just really deepen those connections and get to know people I didn't really know. I think that's where really me and Noelle like clicked. Was in Marseille, and also it was the first like you're on your own independence we got as a class. You know, we the first day we got there, they gave us a list of places to find, and they said find them. No map, no nothing, and we really just got to explore the city on our own, which is something that you don't really get to do every day. And then I remember asking a lot of directions from locals, and they were all very nice, which contrary to belief, the French people can be nice sometimes. But yeah.
That's so great. And I think it's a great example of the immersion, the level of immersion that we're talking about, that you had to go up to locals and ask directions. And I'm sure you learned at a really, really rapid pace because of that challenge, even though it can really, be a little daunting at first. The reward is so massive on the other end. So that's so great. All right. Next topic is host families. So Lucy, can you please tell us a little bit about your host family, maybe a memory with them?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I have so many memories with my host family. I still call them all the time. I called my host mom yesterday. Like I'm a senior and I'm navigating the whole college process. So I was talking to her about my stress about it. And she just said, well, just come to Spain. All your issues will be solved. And I was like, that's a great idea. But I love my host family. I switched host families second semester at the Markers second semester. So if people have questions about switching, I am definitely open to talking about that. But once I did switch, I was pretty nervous to meet my new host family. And I was also sick. It was winter, and so I had a cold. And my host parents were so welcoming and kind and made me soup and hugged me like I was their own daughter, and were just like so loving. My host brothers are hilarious. I love them so much. I have sisters in the States, so it was really interesting to be able to experience having little brothers. And yeah, I remember I was definitely intimidated by my host brothers at first. And by the end of the first night that I met them, they were like goofing around, playing soccer in the house. Like they nearly broke a flower pot that my host mom had set up on the table, and she wasn't that happy about that. And so it was just like, even though you can't communicate perfectly in whatever the target language is, it was so good to see that they were just kids and I could totally connect with them. And now I do talk to them all the time. So yeah, I really loved my host family, and I'm definitely still connected with them.
Awesome. And thank you so much for bringing up the switch. I think that is a common question that we get. So for the students and parents watching, we do fill out your child will fill out a long survey about what they're looking for in a host family. We do our best to find families and in our pool, background checked and referred to us through other host families, to make a good match. And then of course, if something comes up and we can't solve it or work through it, then we do have, students will have the option to switch. Again, we want our students to enter our program excited and motivated to make the host family experience as good as they can. And of course, our host family coordinators on campus can always step in if we need to make a change. So Sophia, how about your host family?
So I also switched actually, and again, SYA really supported me during that switch. And after I switched, I felt like everything changed. I was placed in such a good family, and I remember being just, as Lucy said, just so welcomed and so loved. And actually, one of my favorite memories was my family comes from Lyon, and we lived in Rennes, so it's like the north and south, and we would do a road trip all the time. Actually, the first weekend I came, we did a road trip, and mind you, it's an 8-hour car ride. So first weekend, 8-hour car ride, one car, all jammed together, the dog included, and it was just such a great way to meet everyone. And then I also remember, this is probably my all-time favorite memory, was Christmas time. We went to the Alps, and I didn't know how big of a family they had. It was a family of 50 people. So I come from a family of 5. So this was a big change, and again, it was a long car ride, and the car ride was going through everyone's names. So by the time I got there, I knew everyone's names. And I remember Christmas Day, mind you, 50 people, and I think there's like 20 grandkids. The grandmother had knitted everyone a scarf with their name on it. And I remember Christmas Day, there was something under the tree with my name, and she had knitted me a scarf with my name on it. And I was just not expecting it at all. And that was something that was like, they like see me as family, and like this is my second family. So I could not be happier, and I'm still in contact with them. So yeah.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story. And I think both of you shared stories with the soccer in the house and the scarf at Christmas time, that you really felt like you were part of the family. And we do hear that our families who are on board with us want to welcome another family member for the year or the semester, and they're prepared to kind of, wherever they go, they want to bring the student with them. And that brings up a great point about vacations and winter break. So we get that question a lot, and basically all of our host families are fully prepared to host the student throughout the full year, and that includes breaks. We do encourage families to come visit if possible. We don't usually recommend students going home and then coming back, just because the transition can be pretty difficult. Speaking English again and seeing people again and then coming back, but it is up to the student and the family to make that decision. But our host families are fully ready to spend that special vacation time with the student. And I think we often find that some of the best memories are made over that time, where you're sharing holidays together, special meals together, family gatherings, and things like that. So thank you both for sharing about that. So Noelle, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about fieldwork opportunities. So we have regular fieldwork on all of our campuses, where our students get outside of the classroom and kind of use, led by one of their teachers, and focused on one of their subjects. They use that information and what they've learned so far and really put it into practice. So Noelle, if you could share one of your fieldwork experiences, please.
So my favorite fieldwork was when we spent the day at the local French high school. So in SYA France, you also eat lunch at the local French high school called Jean Massé. And so our fieldwork for that week was to shadow students. So we were paired with one student. I actually had two, and I guess they would be the equivalent of like a 10th grader in the US. So I spent the whole day shadowing them in all of their classes. I really enjoyed sitting in on their English class, because it was really just funny for me to see kind of experience that switch of I'm here learning French and now I'm watching them kind of learn English. So that was just a really interesting perspective change, because one of the most important parts about this whole experience is seeing a new perspective. So that moment for me, especially in that English class, was just I'm really in a French school with these students learning my own language. So I also got to help them the same way they get to help me. And also through that experience, I was able to make some friends with the local high schoolers, and a few of which I still keep in contact with today.
So great. Yeah. As I mentioned, each campus does a little bit of a different variation of the exchange with a local school. And we often find that is a total highlight for our students, just because it really is a window into a whole new world, a different high school experience, but one that can be super impactful and really helpful to make a local connection to, which is awesome. All right, Lucy, could you talk a little bit about fieldwork in Spain?
Yeah, I loved fieldwork. I think that when I went to Spain, I think I'd seen the fieldworks. I knew the first fieldwork we were going to do, we were going to be making wine, which I was so excited about. So I kind of expected a little bit of a goofy, really a community bonding time. But we also had some fieldworks that were really serious and really impactful, completely so memorable. I would say definitely my favorite field work was when we went to Belchite, which is a small Spanish, it's a pueblo, but it was destroyed during the Civil War in Spain. And so it was kind of left as like this relic to kind of showcase the brutality and the history of the battle. And so it's open for visitors. There's like tours. It also like I think there's a scene in Spider-Man that was filmed in it just because it's like so striking, but that's beside the point. But it is really a striking city, and our tour guide, I think it was like her great grandmother or something, had been a young girl during the battle. And so it was just like totally illuminating to hear about. Yeah, I think that was definitely my favorite field work, learning about the history of where we actually were with a place that in Europe, all of the history is preserved so beautifully, but learning about Franquismo and how recent that was just totally shocking when we were able to go to these places and really see the impacts that that moment in time for Spain still has now.
Yeah, great. And thank you both for sharing. I think we hear from students all the time, like you actually get to see your coursework come to life. And I think that experience, seeing what you study in the classroom, just makes things click in a way that is really hard to do when you stay in the classroom. So I'm so glad both of you had such positive experiences. We are going to now talk about a typical day at SYA Italy. So Alexandra, could you walk us through a typical day in Italy?
So the average school day started off where I walked to school, since my house, my host family's house, was pretty close by, as was a lot of my classmates. And the schedule varied day to day. Sometimes it started off with advisory, sometimes it started off with a class, but it'd be 3 class blocks before a 20-minute break where we'd be getting a coffee nearby, because obviously the coffee's amazing in Italy. Then we'd have 2 more class blocks, and then for lunch, me and my friends were either going to the Mensa, food free provided by SYA, or when we were in the mood for it, we'd go to our favorite restaurant nearby school called Spaghetteria. I think it was like the class favorite. It was really, really good. I miss it to this day. And then after 3 more class blocks, I would hang out with my friends for a little bit after school before going back to my host family's house. I would do some homework, and then every single night, without fail, my host family was doing family dinners, which was something that a lot of my classmates were not really used to. I do family dinners, but these family dinners lasted a lot longer than I was used to, but it was a nice end of day check-in with your family. And afterwards, my family really liked watching movies. I had 2 younger brothers, so we'd watch movies, and yeah, it was a very good environment. I really liked my host family.
That's great. And I'm so glad you brought up the time for dinner. I think all of our students may be a little shocked that the sacred dinner time is, you cannot mess with it. You cannot show up late to it. And it really is a priority. And I think that's also where so much of the language learning happens for our SYA students. And so it's incredibly valuable and so important to be able to debrief after a long school day. So thank you for sharing about that. So final question before we move on to the audience questions, which I have your pre-submitted questions here as well. Just a quick tidbit for what really made you apply to SYA in the end. So we'll hear from Sophia and then Noelle.
Okay, well, for me, first, when I was applying to my high school, I knew that going abroad was an option, which was a really big appeal for me. I wanted to improve my French, which I was like, living there is the best way to do it. And also that I felt like my school was feeling a lot like a bubble, and I just wanted to get that new perspective. And that's exactly what I got. I got this entirely new worldview. I felt like I've lived 20 years in 1 year, and now that I'm coming back, it feels like I'm just so much more mature. And really, it's just given me so many connections all over the world, all over the state. I mean, I didn't have friends in like California or like New York and all these places, and now I do. I mean, I was literally just in New York last week and I saw Noelle. Those are things that like SYA just really allows you, and you make these connections that really are just so strong. And I'm forever grateful for that. And yeah.
Great. How about you, Noelle?
I mean, Sophia took the words right out of my mouth, but I knew about like these programs when I was in, I'd say like the 7th or 8th grade in middle school, because I had an older sister who was talking about these programs. She didn't do them herself, but I heard about them from her, and I was like, I want to do that when I'm in high school. But what really like pushed me to just like take the step, because initially it can be really scary. I remember looking through the websites with my parents, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. But what I was looking for was like, besides the aspect of like the language proficiency, I wanted to be able to like experience a life with different customs, different people, experience different cultures. And especially, I feel like what's so special about SYA is the host family aspect, because it's not something you can always do, let's say, like in a college study abroad program. So I was like, I want to do this with a host family and with this like tight knit community that SYA is. And that's just what initially like pushed me to just like take the step and apply.
That's great. So I'm so glad both of you did. And look at you now, leading an info session. So I think that some of that also gets to the amount of time that students choose to spend with us. So we offer limited spots for semester programs at all 3 of our campuses. And most of our students do stay for the full academic year. So from September to May, and our calendars are on the website. But I want to turn it to Alexandra about just to hear about what maybe you would tell a student who's considering both a semester and a year, because you did a semester.
So I can definitely speak to the experience of being a semester student, and it was awkward at first coming into a class where everybody's talking about staying for the full year, but my parents would have never let me stay for a full year. They didn't want me going, so I wouldn't have been able to do SYA if I did a semester, and I was nervous I wouldn't get as much out of the experience, but I still did, and I still got to come back home and like resume all the stuff I really wanted to be part of my school musical in the spring, and I still was able to do that and get some parts of home, but I could still have the experience of SYA. So even though I didn't get to stay for the full year, it didn't take away from the magic and the learning from that experience. And even though I was bummed out that I couldn't do a full year, that's your only option, or if you're kind of nervous to commit to the full year, like, you should do it anyways. You should do it anyways, because it's still such a great experience, even though most of your classmates will be full years.
I think that's such a great piece of advice. I think when I'm speaking to students and interviewing students as well, I usually talk to them about, why are they so set on a semester a year? And if the answer is, oh, I'm not able to, or I have the big commitment in the spring, then I'm so happy that SYA is an option for our semester students. And there are lots of pros for going for the year. So Noelle, I will turn it over to you to chat about your perspective.
Yeah, so I remember actually I was debating whether to stay for the semester or the year. And the reason behind this was like missing out from like stuff that was going on in my homeschool, and also kind of that like nervousness of like, oh my gosh, like what if I don't like it and then I can't go home and whatever. But I ended up staying for the year because I think like what I was really thinking most about was like the adjustment period. I know a lot of my friends that stayed for the semester enjoyed their time and had like took away a lot from the experience. But what I feel like you can get from staying from the year is like you're able to adjust better with the environment, with the language, and with your host family as well, because like it can take a lot of time to adjust, especially everything is new. So I felt like having that adjustment period, and then second semester I was just like so ready, and like I knew the town like my own home by then, and like my host family, we already knew each other's routines by then, so it was just like everything was flowing so much better that I could really just like focus on those specific things that I wanted to do, besides the fact of like the nervousness. You kind of get rid of that, and then you can just like enjoy what's around you.
That's such a great point. I think I often hear from students that it's after maybe a few months that the language really starts to come to them a little more. So speaking of that, Sophia, could you tell us a little bit? We got a question. Does everyone start SYA knowing the language?
Absolutely not. So there is a language requirement for going abroad, those 2 years, but everyone is really at a different place, especially when you might be nervous, like, oh my God, no one's going to understand me. I felt like that. And then I was kind of like, okay, so what? Because really pushing yourself is what makes you achieve that fluency. And especially, you have the support from your host family because your host family understands. Like, you guys are these Americans who do not know, you guys are not natives, and they really like hold your hand in that process. I remember coming to France, I had an awful, awful, awful American accent. I was like, je m'appelle, like, so it was awful. And then there was this period that, like, I feel like everyone felt like this switch. Like, it was like franglais because everyone was speaking like English and then they'd mix in like French, or like they were speaking French and then they'd mix in English because your brain was kind of like in that like we're decoding everything moment, because it really just comes naturally. I would say to anyone who's considering it, do not let the language barrier like restrict you from applying, because if anything, applying is going to make you achieve that fluency. Don't worry about where you're starting, just think about how you're going to end when you finish this program.
I love that. I might steal that from you, Sophia, on the road. I might have to quote you on that. Very well said. Thank you. I think we hear that from applicants all the time. I don't know if I know enough of the language. I don't know if I feel so comfortable speaking. And my response is that's exactly why you do SYA, because it's such a quick way to pick up the language and really immerse yourself. And the growth that we see, as Sophia is mentioning, is absolutely incredible. So I'll go through the next couple questions and then I'll turn it back to our panelists. So how many students are in one SYA country? It ranges from about 45 to about 60-ish, with Italy being on the smaller side and Spain and France being a little bit bigger. And then I should mention that semester slots are about 10-ish per semester. So, and that's on all 3 campuses. Can 2 high schoolers from the same high school go to the same SYA country? Yes, you are more than welcome to apply to SYA, as are your classmates. And we often see that some students do know someone from the same school, but not always. When does the school year start? So our dates are on our website. We have calendars for each country. Italy is the very end of August, and Spain and France were September 6th, 7th-ish. And then the school year ends in late May. And then the semester ends in mid-late December and then starts again in early January. Are students' SAT scores affected? So we are SAT testing sites, so I can't speak to every student's scores, but we do offer the PSAT and the SAT on our campuses, so you are more than welcome to take it with us. Often students will take it the summer before and the summer after, but our students are more than welcome to sign up for the SAT right on our school campuses. So that's pretty easy. So when does the choice of full year, semester, or summer have to be made? So the summer application is a totally separate application, totally separate requirements. So they're kind of 2 separate ball games. But the full year and semester application is the same. We do ask you to indicate your top choice. There is now an option to indicate a second choice. So if you, want to apply to full year Spain and you still want to go for the full year, and if you can't get a slot in Spain, you want to also apply to Italy, you can note that in your application, and that's the same for the semester. So you can put one as your top choice and another as your second, and we encourage you to really think about if you would have a second choice. The acceptance rate, so that's a great question, which totally depends on the year because we start fully from scratch each year, the semester versus full year and the country. So it is really, really hard to predict for our programs, but we do really strongly encourage you to apply. We see that we often have a very self-selecting bunch of students who are really motivated and really excited to attend SYA, so we do encourage you to apply. So tuition. So we have a kind of specific question about tuition for a sending school, and I encourage you to email me at mbland@sya.org about those questions. So we have over 120 sending schools where our high schoolers are coming from. So each school has a different policy on tuition. I would say most schools pause the tuition at the home school and ask you to pay SYA directly. And again, we have over $2 million in financial aid and over 10 scholarships. So we really encourage you to apply, but every school is different. So that's a little bit up to our families to chat with folks at your school to see what their policy is when you study away. So please email me about that question if you have a more specific question on that. So Lucy, we had a question about a typical day at SYA Spain. So I know that you are also taking 6 courses, and it may mirror the SYA Italy day, but can you talk to us a little bit about how SYA Spain goes for a typical day?
Yeah, I would love to. I do think it will mirror Italy a bit, but so I would wake up in the morning, brush my teeth, comb my hair, get dressed, and then I would ride the tranvia, which is essentially, it's kind of like our equivalent in San Francisco or like NorCal of BART, and on the East Coast, it's, I guess you could call it an above ground subway, but it's super helpful. It's used by, I would say, at least half the city, if not more. So I would get on the train, I would swipe my tranvia card, and I would just ride it through the main track of the city until I got to El Centro, which is where the school is. It's right in the center of the city, so it's great for everybody just because everyone lives, if you live in an outer part of the city, everyone kind of meets in the middle. And so if you're meeting up with your friends on weekends or things like that, it's always just easy to say, let's meet by school, because everyone has really direct access to it. I would have my first couple of classes. I would have descanso, which is kind of the equivalent of what Alexandra was talking about, where I'm able to go get a cup of coffee. Again, coffee is great. Or sometimes I would try to meet with a teacher if I needed help with something, or sometimes I would just start doing some work. Maybe I needed to buy something from the store, I could do that. And then my classes would continue until lunchtime. Again, there is a lunch option that SYA provides, which was at the local elementary school right across the street. So that was definitely really fun just because we got to know some of the local elementary school kids over the course of the year before we left, which was, they really thought that we were so interesting because we were Americans and they always wanted to engage with us. So we would either eat there or kids can eat off campus. And then after my last couple classes, the day would wrap up, and usually I would go, I'm a swimmer, so I would go to the pool kind of like to clear my head. It was easy to find a local pool near where I was living in the city. I swam at a couple different pools over the course of the year. A lot of my friends would go to soccer practice. Maybe I would go to rowing, or maybe I would go to a cooking class or a ceramics class. Or maybe I would just go straight home and work on my homework. But that was kind of what my day looked like. And then for dinner, of course, you respect the dinner, and the dinner lasted until 9:30, 10, and then I would get to bed.
Great. Thank you so much, Lucy. These are, again, great questions. I see another question. Do students ever attend the program for a second time before they graduate high school? Not often. Often our students have graduation requirements at their sending schools that they have to get back for. And I encourage all of you to check out our course catalog on our website if you are interested to see if that would be a possibility. But yes, we have had it happen before, but it's quite rare. So I do know that we have some questions coming in about the host family switch. Sophia, I'll turn it over to you, but before I do, from my experience, it's a variety of things. Again, as I said, each campus has a host family coordinator who is very involved in student life and always checking in with our students to see how their host family experience is going. So our students do have a point person to go to. And we do try, if it's a communication barrier or anything like that, we do try to work with the student and the family to work through some of those maybe initial obstacles. But then, of course, again, as I said, if there is something that we can't change ourselves, like a family setup that a student's really interested in having, or a dynamic that they'd like to see well in the host country, then we can offer a switch. So I don't know, Sophia, if you want to briefly touch on your experience.
Yeah, of course. So, as you said, everyone kind of has their own reasons for switching. So, I switched after the 2 month mark, which is the kind of what SYA encourages to test out your family. And then after 2 months, you can revisit kind of the idea of switching families. For me, I switched families because it really just wasn't the dynamic I was looking for. The kids were older and no one was really at the house all the time. I really wanted to have a family in which I could engage in, which was literally exactly what I asked for after I switched, and also that their main activity or family activities always revolved around a religion that I was not a part of, so I couldn't really connect with them in that way. But again, after I made that switch, I literally felt at home. My host family calls me every week. They're like, "Okay, we're coming to Boston," or like they're like, "When are you coming to Ren?" So yeah, and SYA was really, really supportive in that change. And although they do want to try to see you make it work, they also understand that sometimes it's just not a right fit. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. And again, if you have more specific questions, please email me. I'm happy to talk to you about a specific preference that you're looking for in a host family. But the process kind of overview is that our students fill out a long form about what they're looking for in the host family process. All of our host families are fully background checked, and our host family coordinator visits their home and interviews them in person. Many of our host families, most of our host families are returning host families, so we know them quite well. But every year we do get families who are personally referred to us by existing host families who are able to interview to get a spot in our host family bunch. So we're quite involved in that process, and so is the student. So we definitely encourage our applicants once enrollment period is happening to really think critically about what you're asking for in a host family and kind of what things you'd hope to find in your host family, and we will do our best to make that happen. But yes, many of them are repeat families. I will refer most of you to our website for some of the scholarship. That's a great question. Our scholarships, only one of our scholarships requires additional application materials. So because we have over 10, I won't go through them all right now, but please visit our website about scholarship opportunities. Great, thank you, Sarah. Yep, repeat host families. Great. So again, please email me if you have any more specific questions. I'm happy to talk to all of you or set up a phone call. And before we wrap up, I do just want to say thank you so much to Sophia, Noelle, Alexandra, and Lucy for taking the time to give back to us at SYA Admissions and to speak about your experiences. I know I learned so much from these calls, and I hope all of you watching at home did too. You are all very brave for doing this and courageous to come on a webinar and speak to all of us too. So I really, really appreciate it. And also for everyone at home, please follow us on our Instagram and TikTok, just because our content is amazing from our current students, and it really does give you a better sense of what's going on campus. So we really appreciate your time. Please email me if you have any more questions, and we really thank all of you for joining. So thank you, everybody, and have a great night.